Good day, everyone. This is Mom Grace, and welcome to your mathematics class. To start with, let's have a recall. Geometric sequence is a sequence obtained by multiplying a common ratio to the preceding term in order to obtain the succeeding terms. While geometric means is the term or terms in between the first and the last terms of the geometric sequence. The formula for the nth term of a geometric sequence is a sub n is equal to a sub 1 plus the ratio is equal to a sub 1 times the ratio raised to the power of n minus 1, where n is the number of the terms, r is the common ratio, a sub 1 is the first term, and a sub n is the nth term. While the formula for the common ratio, especially if the given is the last term and the first term of the sequence, is r is equal to the n minus 1 root of a sub n divided by a sub 1. N is equal to the number of terms, that's minus 1. It will be the nth root of the last term divided by the first term. For the first things first is divide the last term and the first term, and then take the n minus 1 root of that. For example, find the geometric means between 2 and 250. So since we have two blanks here, that means we will be using two geometric means. So to solve for that, we will have to solve for the r using the formula. Substitute the values. So n is 4 since we have two extremes, that's 4, minus 1 root of 250, which is our last term, divided by 2, which is our first term. The answer for 250 and 2 is 125. 4 minus 1 is 3. Therefore, our common ratio will be the cube root of 125, which is 5. So to get the next term or the first geometric mean, we will have to multiply our common ratio, which is 5, to our first term, which is 2. So 2 times 5 is 10. Then multiply again the same ratio, that's 5. So 10 times 5 is 50. Therefore, the two terms in between 2 and 50, which we call the geometric means, are 10 and 50. Next example, we have the first term 8, and we will be finding the three common or the geometric means between 8 and the fifth term, which is 1/2. So we will have to get the common ratio using the nth term formula. So whichever of which we are going to use, we will have to go back to the derived formula of the common ratio, which is the r is equal to n minus 1 root of a sub n divided by a sub 1. So here we have all the substitution of the given values, 8 and 1/2, and we have n is 5. So 5 minus 1 is 4. Therefore, we have the fourth root of the first term, which is or the last term, which is 1/2 divided by 8. So the answer now is 1/16. So the fourth root of 1/6 rather is equal to 1/2. Okay. So we get times 1/2, that is 4. 4 times 1/2, that is 2. And 2 times 1/2, that is 1. Therefore, the three geometric means between 8 and 1/2 is 4, 2, and 1. Example number 4. We have the terms negative 1 and negative 625. We have three geometric means missing. So we got our common ratio, which is the fourth root of negative 625, our last term, divided by negative 1, which is our first term. So divide that, the answer is positive 625 since our numbers are both negative. So fourth root of 625, the answer is 5. This number will be multiplied to that first term and to the preceding terms. So negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. Negative 25 times 5 is negative 125. Therefore, the three geometric means between negative 1 and negative 625 is negative 5, negative 25, negative 125. Okay, next we will have to find the next three terms of the geometric sequence. So first, we have to make sure that it is a geometric sequence by finding the common ratio, and that common ratio that we found, we'll have to multiply it to the last term that is given to get the next terms, however many are they. So to get the common ratio, we have the fifth root of 96. All right. So we can just have to get the, never mind the solution there, we just have to get the ratio by dividing the second term and the first term. That is 6 divided by 2 is, sorry, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that is multiplied by 2 to the third term to get the fourth term, that is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. 48 times 2 is 96. Therefore, if we have to check, if we really have 2 as our common ratio, that's 96 divided by 3 is 32. The fifth root of 32 is. Okay, so we will proceed. Another next three terms of the geometric sequence given 16, 12, and 9. So what would be the next three terms? So that is 9 over 16. So end root of that would be 3/4. So multiply by 3/4 ng 9. So we have 27/4. Multiply again by 3/4, that's 81 over 16. And another 3/4, that's 243 over 64. That's how to find the next term or the next three terms of a geometric sequence. Now we will be going forward to the sum of the geometric sequence, which we will be calling also the partial sum or the geometric series in the finite sequence. Okay, so we will be talking only of the sum of the terms in a finite geometric sequence. When we say finite, it has the last term. Of course, given is the first term, the next term, the third term, and the preceding terms. But we will be going to find a certain number of terms only. So that's a finite sequence. So let's proceed. We have condition number 1 states that if r is not equal to 1, therefore, for solving the common ratio, we will have to make sure that we set condition number 1 not equal to 1. So it should be greater than 1. So that's 2 and above, or it could be less than 1, could be 1/2, or less than that. So for the meantime, we have the formula a sub n is equal to a sub 1, the first term, times 1 minus the common ratio raised to the power of n, which is the number of the terms, all over 1 minus r. So here you can see that n is now a power or an exponent. So hindi na po natin siya babawasan ng isa because here 1 is already written. So whatever 1 minus r you write on the numerator, you have to write it down on the denominator less the power in the first term. Then we have the same legends. Next, condition number 2, if r is equal to 1. So the first condition states that that's not equal to 1. Therefore, it should be greater than 1 or less than 1. But this time, it's equal to positive 1. So make sure that the sequence given to you is, when you divide the second and the first term, you got the ratio which is positive 1. So the formula for that would be S sub n is equal to the first term times the number of terms. We will have examples later on. So same labels, A sub 1 is the first term and is the number of terms. And S sub n is the sum of the number of the terms in the geometric sequence. Okay, so here we don't need to solve for the common ratio because that's our first step already. Condition number 2, r is equal to 1. The formula S sub n is equal to A sub 1 times n. Next condition number 3, if r is negative 1 and n is even. So therefore, n is the number of the terms. So even is divisible by 2. It starts with 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. So make sure that our common ratio is negative 1. That means the terms are alternate positive and negative, or negative and positive, and so on. So our main goal here is that our n is even. So for that, the sum of the geometric sequence whose ratio is -1 and the n is even is equal to 0. All right. So same legends. So you don't need to solve here on this condition number 3, as long as you already evaluate the common ratio and the number of the terms. Next condition is condition number 4. If r is equal to -1 and n is odd. So opposite of condition number 3, but still common ratio is -1. It's just that n is odd. So that's 1357, and it ends with the same number 13579. So the sum of the geometric sequence whose r is -1 and the number of terms to be added is odd. So S of n is equal to the first term of the given sequence. You don't need to solve, just write down the sum is equal to the first term. Okay, as long as you settled with the condition set on that number. Okay, so let's see the problems here and what condition does it satisfies. So this one says the sum of the first 25 terms of 11, 11, 11, and so on. So we have here to find the solution, and we get our common ratio, which is +1. So this is condition number 2, and condition number 2 states that S sub n is equal to A sub 1 times n. Therefore, our A sub 1 is 11. 11 times 25 is 270. Next problem is find the sum of the first 47 terms of the sequence 17, -17, 17, and -17, and so on. So we'll have to solve for the common ratio. -17 divided by 17 is -1. So for -1, we have to make sure if it is odd or even. So since our number of terms here is 47, it's odd. Okay, so since the n is odd and the ratio is -1, therefore we will be using the formula S sub n is equal to A sub 1, which is our condition number 4. So our S sub 47 is equal to 17, which is our first term as well. Okay, so let's proceed. Find the sum of the first 36 terms of -14, 14, -14, 14, and so on. So by using the formula for the common ratio, we get -1 as our common ratio. So it's either rule number 3 or rule number 4. So for that reason, our n is even. Therefore, that's condition number 3 states that if r is -1 and the number of terms is even, our sum of the geometric sequence is 0. So we don't need to solve anything. That's equal to 0. So change lang natin ang number of terms, which is 36 equal to 0. And S of 36 is equal to 0. Okay? Next, another problem. Given find the sum of the n is equal to 7 terms, A sub 1 is 16 and the ratio is 2. Since our ratio is 2, which is not equal to 1, we will be looking for condition number 1. Using the formula, S sub n is equal to A sub 1 times the quantity of 1 minus r raised to n all over 1 minus r. Substituting all the given, minding the subtraction signs here. So since our r is positive, then just substitute. So 2 raised to 7 is 128. 1 minus 128 is -127. Times 16 divided by 1 minus 2, which is -1. So -127 times 16 is -2032. Divided by -1 is +2032. Therefore, the sum of the 7 terms, which starts with 16 and with a ratio of 2, is 2032. All right. Now let's proceed. To our next problem. Find the sum of the first 6 terms of 27, 9, 3, and so on. So since the sequence is descending, we are expected that we could get a fraction the next 3 examples, or next 3 terms. So to find the solution for the common ratio, we have to divide a sub 2 and a sub 1, which is 9 and 27. The answer for that is 1/3. So 1/3 is not equal to 1. Therefore, we will be looking for our formula, which is condition number 1. So substituting all the values we have there, 27 equal times 1 minus 1/3 raised to the power of 6 all over 1 minus 1/3. So dito lang po yan galing ang 1 minus 1/3. Kopyahin nyo lang na yan. And then simplify 1/3 raised to the 6th power will become 1 over 729. That's 1 raised to 6 over 3 raised to 6. So that's double check. So that's why I put parentheses with 1/3 so that it is understood that only 1/3 will be raised to 6. Then I use 729 over 729 so that it will be a similar fraction. It will be easier for us now to subtract the two fractions. 729 minus 1 is 728 over 729. Okay, after answering that, we will have to multiply it by 27, and the answer for 1 minus 1/3 is 2/3. So we will have to answer this numerator first before we proceed to the division. So 728 times 27 all over 729 is 19,656 over 729. We'll divide it by the answer here, which is 2/3. So since division of fraction over a fraction or the complex fractions that we call, you'll have to multiply the reciprocal of our denominator. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. We have to multiply instead of to divide. All right. So multiplying that, we can use our calculator. So we can use the manual method of solving for that. And we get 58,968 over 1,458. Simplifying that, we get the answer 364 over 9. This will now be the sum of our 6 terms, which starts with 27, and the common ratio is 1/3. So it will just happen to be longer solution if ever we have the fraction as our common ratio, because we have to take every step in solving for the fraction and then another step in division with complex fractions. Okay. So we will practice. Find the sum of 1, 2, 4, 8 with the 6 as the number of terms. So we have to get only the common ratio. So that's 2 divided by 1, which is 2. So since the ratio is not equal to 2, we will use the first formula of condition number 1. Substituting that, 2 raised to 6. Okay, so 1 minus 64, 1 minus... Okay, we will have to correct that. So let's correct that. It will become 2 raised to 6 is 64 rather. So that is 1 here. So 1 minus 64, that is 1 times negative 63. Okay, all over negative 1. So negative 63 over negative 1 is positive 63. All right, so S sub 6 now is equal to 63. So the sum of 1, 2, 4, 8, and so on until the 6th term. So the 16 and 32 will be added on there to make it 6. Okay, so let's go on. So our answer is positive 63. So let's go find the sum of the first 8 terms of positive 2, negative 10, positive 50, negative 250, and so on. Solving for the ratio, we get negative 5. So since it's not equal to 1, again, we have to use the condition number 1 formula. So substituting, that's 2, first term. Then just write down 1 minus, our ratio is negative 5. So enclose in the parentheses, raised to 8. Okay? Then 1 minus negative 5, enclose in parentheses as well, to emphasize its negative sign. Then solving for negative 5 raised to 8, that is negative 5 raised to 8. That is 390,625. So let's write it down. So 390, oops, 1,625. Oh, why? Let's erase this first. Can't fit. What's happening? Ano nangyari? So we get, it should be 5 there. Ba't ayaw? Okay, so let's continue. So we have here 1 minus the answer for negative 5 raised to 8 is positive 390,625. So minus, subtracted it from 1, so that's negative 390,624 times 2 divided by 6. So multiplying these two numbers, we get negative 781,248 divided by 6. The answer is negative 130,208. Okay, so we can just skip this step. So after substitution, we can just skip it. Make it sure that you have subtracted it from 1. That's subtract from 1. That's not minus 1. Okay. Let's have the next. All right, so the next one is find the sum of the 8 terms, positive 2, negative 10, positive 50, negative 250. The answer is negative 5 for the common ratio, but our n now is even. Okay, so substituting that, we have negative 5 raised to 8. Okay, so this should be negative 390,624. And the answer for that is negative 130,208. So everything is just substitution. Okay, next to that would be find the sum of the first 9 terms of -3, -6, -12, -24. Solving for the common ratio, -6 divided by -3 is +2. Okay, so it's still not equal to 1. Therefore, we will use the solution number 1 or condition number 1. So substituting the values, -3 is the first term equals or times 1 minus 2 raised to 9, which is the ninth term, divided by 1 minus r. So after that, -3. So 1 minus 2 raised to 9. 2 raised to 9 is 512, and 1 minus 512 is -511 times 3, or -3 rather, that is positive 1,533 divided by -1, that is -1,533. So everything is easy if you already have mastered the conditions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, find the sum of the first 9 terms of the sequence whose a sub 1 is equal to -7 and the ratio is -1. So this time we have here our ratio is -1. So let's use our yellow pen. Okay, I hope it's yellow since I am in yellow. So our a sub 1 is, it's not working well. -7, our common ratio is -1. Okay, so our n is 9. Okay, so since ang ating ratio ay -1 and our n is 9, which is an odd number, then we will be using condition number 4, which is as easy as S sub n is equal to a sub 1, and the a sub 1 given to us is -7. So obviously, we will get our S sub 9 is equal to -7. No subs or no computation needed. All we need is our eyes and the stored memory of the formula or the condition. Next, find the sum of the first 6 terms of the sequence whose a sub 1 is -14 and the ratio is -1. So take note, we have our ratio again -1, but our n now is positive or even. Okay, so as I've just said earlier, we will be using condition number 3. So S sub n is equal to 0, as well as we have no computation needed. Just write S sub 6 is equal to 0. Okay. Next, find the sum of the first 6 terms of the sequence whose a sub 1 is 2/3 and ratio is 1. So here we have 6 terms as our n, 2/3 is our a sub 1, and the ratio is 1. So as we have remembered, this is condition number 2. So we have to multiply the first term and the last term. So, or sorry, the number of the term. So that's 2/3 and 6. And 2/3 of 6 is 4. So let's proceed. So here we have to go back. So let's remember the first term is 2/3. The number of the terms is 6 and the common ratio is 1. So multiply the first term and the first term and the number of the term. So we got 12 over 3 is equal to 4. All right. So that's the end of our discussion. For any clarifications, you can send me the message. You can also schedule the next day remedial, and you can just check your Google Classroom for the upload of the learning material. That's it. That's the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for listening very well. Goodbye.